What's going on, everyone? Steven here at Big Fish Audio, and I'm going to show you how to use the multi-output feature of Sequence. So to get started here, we'll just look at a little part that I put together, and I'm using both a scene from the sequencer, I'm using the roll creator, and I'm using the 808s. And the reason I tell you that I'm using all of those is you can see it's just in one MIDI track right here, and everything is just coming out as one stereo audio file. So you can play this back. You can go over to the mixer, and you can see 1 through 12, these are the channels of the sequencer itself. And then roll creator here, which is technically channel 13. 14, nothing is happening, that's the menus. And 15 here is the 808. So you can see here, if I can solo that, you can just hear the 808 part. But what I want to do is I want to make this multi-output. So I only have right now the ability to put on, if I wanted to apply additional effects. You can apply effects, as you've seen from other videos, up here on the individual channels. If you had a specific plugin that you really like to use, or you're sending this off to a mixer, you're going to want to use the multi-output so that you can send all of the drum parts individually. So to do that, first of all, we need to make sure that we're using the multi-output version of Kontakt. And I happen to just load in here the stereo version of Kontakt. So I need to put this over to the multi-output 16-out stereo. Now, it's not going to erase anything that I've done, the part that I have in the sequencer, any settings that you've created on here. It's just going to replace the version of Kontakt that you have loaded in. So it's going to do that right now. It's going to reload sequence, and you'll have all your parts exactly as you had before. So now that is set up, what we need to do is we need to make sure that our outputs in the back end of Kontakt are set up as well. Now, it's not as scary or daunting as that sounds. All you have to do is click Outputs here, and you can see right now there's one stereo output. So I'm going to hit the plus button on here, and I'm going to set the quantity to 16 because I want to have 16 channels on here. And the number of channels, I'm sorry, when I said 16, I want 16 outputs. And the number of channels is how many each of those outputs, how many channels that's going to have. So if I put 1, it would be a mono channel, but I want them to be stereo, so I'm going to put 2. I'm going to select that over to stereo 1, and then sending output assignments is what I want there, so that it automatically assigns each of the outputs on each of the channels here. And then I want to delete existing channels before creating new ones. And then if you would like, you can make this your default configuration, which I'll go ahead and do. Now that I have those channels in there, there's one more step before you really get to the actual multi-outputs working. I'm going to close that window here. And now in Sequence itself, I need to assign these to which output I want. And I can group these together as well if I wanted to have more than one on one output. I just wanted to send a stem of maybe all the kicks together. That's possible as well, but I'm going to go ahead and just make these all ascending 1 through 16. Now, I don't actually need, as I mentioned before, the menus on here, so I can actually skip the menus, and I'll just go 14 and 15 here. So now I should have the multi-outputs working on here. I'll go back to the output window on here. And I want to bring down the volume. By default, Kontakt loads in everything at -6 dB. Now that I'm using the multi-outputs, it's back at 0. So you'll notice it will get louder. So you'll want to bring everything down. Okay, now we actually want to create all of those tracks so that you can edit them and apply your own effects in Logic, in this case, or whatever DAW you're using. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a mixer on here. And when you have a multi-output plugin, Logic has this little plus/minus button. This allows you to start creating the different tracks for those outputs. And right now it's just putting it in the mixer itself. You'll notice nothing is changing here in my main arrange window. But I'm going to show you how to fix that and add those in there as well. This first one here, which is where the plugin was stored, that is output 1. So even though this says aux 1, this is technically 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 14. And I currently am using 15 of these, so I'm going to go ahead and do one more on here. And then if I hit play, you should see all the different parts coming out of each of these channels here. And again, that's louder than I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just take all of these and lower them down. Now, if I want to see these on my arrange window, that's a very simple thing to do. I'm going to highlight them all, and then I'm going to right click and I'm going to put create tracks. And now all those tracks will be here in my arrange window, where I can go ahead if I want to solo this kick here, or this is kick number 2 here. So you can also go in and name everything just to keep everything organized. So you can hear that's kick 2. There's my 3rd kick. There's my 808. And if I wanted to apply my own processing on here, that there was something specifically that I wanted to pull in that I like to use, you can just do that right there and apply any processing you want for any of these channels. Now, at some point, you may want to get everything to audio. So if you're outputting this for a mixer, or just to help with your CPU, if you have a track that you're working on that has a lot of different parts to it, even the fastest computers can really get bogged down if you're talking, 100 tracks or something like that. And right here, we're working with 15 tracks just from the drums alone. So to do that, what you want to do is you need to bounce the regions to audio. And you can do that all in just one quick process, but you do, in Logic at least, need to have regions in all of these different parts. And then you can highlight all of these and then go up to File, Bounce, and you want to do Tracks in Place. And from here, you want to make sure that these are checked off, include instrument multi-outputs, and all those multi-outputs as additional tracks. Then hit OK. And now I have the audio outputs of each of my different parts on here. And I have all these muted now. The MIDI is muted. The nice thing about this is you can just kind of disable all of this, but leave it open. If you want to go back to something and you decide that you want to change the drums, you can easily just go back into your MIDI part here, didn't like what you had on there, and then just do everything that I just showed you again, just bounce to audio and with the new parts. So that's how you set up the multi-output all the way to getting bounced audio regions into your DAW.